Hey everybody, this is Nojo from Thranda Design. We're taking another look at the de Havilland Beaver. In our last video we looked at engine starting, so today we're looking at taxi and takeoff. Okay, so now that we're in the cockpit, one thing to talk about, it can take the engine several minutes to warm up to be ready for takeoff. The minimum takeoff temperature for oil temperature is 40 degrees Celsius, this red line here, and cylinder head temperature is 100 degrees Celsius, this line here. So you can see we've actually been idling a while, so our engine's nice and warm. But if you just started and you don't actually want to sit around for a few minutes, you can go to the General tab, bring up the radial engine animation, and click the preheat button, and that'll bring the engine up to operating temperature immediately. Now the other thing we need to check in here is the steering mode. So if we're on steering simplified, then the tailwheel is just locked to the rudder and deflects with the rudder no matter what. That's a great easy way to get up and going quickly if you want to just go for a quick flight. But for this tutorial, we want it on realistic, which means the tailwheel steers up to 25 degrees and then free casters after that. So what that realistic mode does is it makes the tailwheel steer with the rudder through plus or minus 25 degrees, but once we go past 25 degrees, the tailwheel becomes free castering. And you can see there, it recentered, and so it reconnects to the rudder once it's within 25, and then if it goes outside of 25, it's disconnected from the rudder. And so this allows the plane to make really nice tight maneuvers on the ground. By holding full rudder and differential braking, you can just pivot around one of the main gear and maneuver in really tight conditions and make your passengers very dizzy. To get going straight again, we'll do a little power, a little differential braking, and a little opposite rudder. And once that wheel comes back within 25 degrees, then it's steering normally again. Now, if you have a twist grip rudder like I do, then X-Plane is automatically going to add some differential braking at either extreme of the rudder deflection. But if you're fancy and you have rudder pedals with independent toe brakes, then you can do that manually. And that makes it a lot easier to maneuver the plane on the ground, especially with the free castering tailwheel. So now that we're in the cockpit, we can see that big radial engine up front is kind of in the way. It's kind of hard to see past it. So what I like to do is use the arrow keys on the keyboard and go left and just stretch up a little bit, and that'll let me see a little better. Now as we taxi, we can also do shallow S-turns. So if I want to see what's in front of me, I'll taxi over to the right so I can see around that engine cowling, make sure we're clear, and then taxi back to the left. And so as we taxi, we'll just be doing these kind of shallow S-turns along the taxiway so that we don't run into anything. It might look a little funny from the outside, but it's a good technique. Better to look funny than to, hit a truck or something. Alright, so now we're ready for our takeoff. So before we do that, we need to talk about two things, the flaps and takeoff technique. So let's take a look at the flaps first. So the flap handle is down here. The system's a little bit different from what you might be used to. We have a hydraulic pump and we have a selector valve. So when this the selector handle is down, that selecting flaps will be extended. They'll be put down when you pump. And when the handle is up, the flaps will be retracted. They'll go up when you pump. So we can see, so we're retracted right now. And if I go handle down and I go pump, 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 then we'll see it's extended the flaps a little bit. Now, obviously, that's a little bit hard to get to. If you're sitting in the pilot seat, reach down, pump the flaps, look back up, see what they're set to. So, as an alternate way, we've also hooked this up to X-Plane's normal flap up, flap down commands. So I just have these assigned to a little toggle switch on my joystick. And so if I go flap up, you can see it'll do kind of one pump at a time. And if I go down, 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 it pumps down. Additionally, if we look down at the pump and selector valve, if I pump down, 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 you see that moves. And if I go up, the selector moves and it'll pump up, 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 up. So pretty cool. That's an easy way to get that to work. Now, additionally, we've also created some custom commands. One is a custom command that will do a single pump, and another is a custom command to make the flap selector up and a command to make it go down. So you can fully customize this. You can assign those to joystick buttons using X-Plane's normal joystick settings window right in here. So those are the flaps. So for flap position, I'm just going to retract these real quick. So the normal takeoff position for the Beaver is takeoff, which, if we look at it, is 35 degrees. That's a lot of flaps for a general aviation plane. But the Beaver's wing really, really likes flaps. So that's a good setting, especially if you have a short runway, short takeoff run, or if there are obstacles that you need to clear pretty quickly. However, a lot of real-world operators use a different method. I'm just going to retract these. They will look out at the wing and roll full right aileron on the yoke. So the aileron here goes down, and then extend the flaps, pump, pump, just enough so they match that aileron. And you can see, as I go back forward, that'll be approximately the climb flap setting. So that'll use a little bit more runway, but it's a little less flap, so just different ways of doing it. Today, we're going to use the full takeoff 35 degrees flap setting. Now, in terms of technique, there are two main ways. Slightly more advanced technique would be, as we start accelerating, give some nose down elevator in order to lift that tail, and then we accelerate in a level attitude, and then lift off just from the main wheels. That's good, but it also has a couple extra, some of the left turning tendencies will be changing throughout that, so it is a bit more of an advanced technique. Because I'm lazy, like a real pilot, and want to do things the easy way, I'm going to do a slightly different method. We're going to try to lift off in a 3-point attitude from all wheels at the same time. So in order to do that, I'll hold a little bit of back pressure. I'm just going to go mixture rich. And I'll hold back pressure and just let the plane lift off from this attitude. So in terms of engine power, for takeoff, we're going to increase the throttle up to our takeoff maximum is 36.5 inches of manifold pressure, and the RPM will be here at 2300 RPM, governed. Normally I like to go to about 35 inches just to give myself a little buffer so I don't overboost, and at sea level we won't quite be full throttle, so it'll be a little below. If we're at high altitude, we might not even be able to make 35 inches at full throttle. So here we go. Power set. I'm going to scoot left, up, so I can see where we're going. Alright, so we're accelerating. I'm holding some back pressure. And airspeed's alive. Here's 50. Whoop. And we're off. So as soon as we take off, we're going to bring our power back to 30 inches manifold pressure and RPM back to 2000. That's our climb setting. Maximum continuous is 33.5 and 2,200 RPM, so if you have a really tough climb you need to do, you can set that instead. So there we go. Once we're about 500 feet up, or once we're clear of obstacles, we can slowly retract the flaps. And this will give a bit of a sink, so you want to make sure you're clear of obstacles. I'm just going to set the flaps to climb, and at this point going to let that speed come up to about 90 miles per hour for our best rate of climb speed. So there we go, that's a look at taxi and takeoff in the de Havilland Beaver. As they say, takeoffs are optional, landings are not, but you're going to have to wait for my next video to see the landing tutorial. So I should probably get working on that. I will see you there.